Hi, welcome back to my train wreck of a channel, because a theme is always a good thing to start with. I'm cooking dinner, so you can tag along. I'm making spag bowl because that's just a classic in my life. It's always a shout, so that's fun. I wanted to talk about a topic which was actually suggested to me rather than me coming up with, this being my school experience and double-sided with what I took away from school in terms of not just qualifications, but like lessons that it taught me, or things that I would then carry on and use in my actual adult life, which I think is actually quite a good conversation to have. If you're watching this and you don't know me previously, I used to be the token school fat kid. I was double XL at 16, and at the age of 17 I decided, before I turned 18, that I wanted to lose the weight. So I spent 9 months vigorously through the first year of sixth form just really trying to make it a personal mission to not be the fat kid anymore, and I wanted to wear the clothes that I had always wanted to wear and be seen as a person before people saw my weight, which is actually a thing. I didn't think it would be quite so much what it was. Yeah, so I basically just wanted to be in a position where I felt so much more better about myself, and my image was more to what I had always imagined it to be. So that was my first big journey into becoming who I was. Most people get bullied at school. It's not so much a case of that there's always one particular person that's targeted. So I think everybody kind of experiences a certain point in their life where they are put into a certain bracket which they find extremely hard to get back out of. Obese, and I'm not afraid to say that. I was one of two gay kids in that year, and I just, was the pinnacle of what people made a joke on. So there wasn't really a lot of lessons where I wasn't kind of so self-conscious to the point that talk or become involved in the lesson, because I didn't really want to do anything to entice anyone to say anything. I kind of wanted to effectively blend in with the furniture. That if I could get through with there being less than 5 comments made, then that was a successful day. And obviously towards the end of school, life-changing for me, because it meant that I could then create a world that I actually wanted to be part of and not tremble with fear or be scared to the point that I felt physically sick about going to school. I don't think two people have the same experience. Right? Everybody takes different things away from it. It teaches them different things about themselves. With like school and stuff, as bad as it was sort of a journey that I'm quite glad I did have, because it definitely taught me to be more of a more rounded person when it came to life experience and how I would treat other people going into adulthood. I kind of knew how it felt to be someone that wasn't, entirely comfortable in a new surrounding, and I knew how to read people with that sort of that energy. I was able to be, a little bit more tougher. Like, I knew that going out into the working world wasn't going to be easy, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of competition, and there would be a lot of people that would naturally like you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it definitely is the case of that. You could be the sweetest peach in the batch, but not a lot of people like peaches. So it's like, you take things at face value. It's very welcome that there is a bit of naivety. You think you're going to come flying out of uni and jump into a job and you're going to have 600 friends and it's going to be an amazing time, whereas in reality you join a workforce and you might rub up the wrong way with one person, and it might not even be anything you've done. That person just really don't get on, and you can't control that and you can't change that, and you just kind of learn to get around with it. So school being the sort of case of it was me potentially against quite a lot of people, meant that I had to kind of learn to be strong in a different way, that I had to understand that this wasn't a reflection of me. Physically looked a certain way that meant that people would use me as the butt of the joke, but it didn't mean that I was a joke. I think over a lot of time kind of taught me that the way that these people acted and the things that they said weren't necessarily about me. It was more something that maybe they were going through, or an insecurity that they had, and their way of coping with that was to project that on me. If I was to see anyone I considered one of the bigger bullies to me, like now, I wouldn't necessarily feel any ill feelings towards them. I have mentally forgiven them. It taught me lessons, and it taught me how to treat people with respect. Words may be such a instantaneous thing, and you may a word or a name, without the intention of offending, and it does happen, but you also have to be really careful about what you say, because they do stick, and this could be something you've taken light-hearted, and the person that you said it to could take it in a whole different way. This could be something that could really mark their skin and make them feel inadequate to you, or that they are less than, and that is a feeling that I don't ever want anyone to be feeling at the hands of me. I understand how that feels. There are certain scenarios or certain words that I have had to listen to multiple times that have stayed with me even now. It wasn't through anyone else's fault, it was more mine. It was a case of like most things, I don't know if it's everyone else's sort of story, but I relied on food. Like, food was my comfort when I would have a day where I felt particularly humiliated, or that I'd been in a situation that had really upset me. I'd eat food, because it was that one quick solution, and at the end of the day it only fueled the situation I was in, because the more I ate, the bigger I got. And it was only till I learned that I could only change the outside by changing how I viewed things, that would be the way to go. So and I mean, even more so, the relationship I have with food isn't a healthy one, and how I abuse food to get to where I am now isn't something that I wish I ever did as well. I kind of went through a situation of eating too much to then eating nothing, and I didn't like food. Food was the enemy. Food was what was causing me to be in those situations and to be vulnerable to other people, and therefore I didn't eat, basically. And I don't condone or encourage that to anyone ever, because you need food to survive. Do you know what I mean? Food isn't a choice, food is a given, and food is something that you have to take with such a responsible mind, because getting into that sort of mentality where it's incredibly hard to get back out of, and even now I'm still kind of dealing with that. There's definitely a relationship I have with my body where I'm very ashamed of how my body looks, and therefore it does affect relationships with myself and with other people, because I don't allow people to see that vulnerability in me, or to tell me that nobody would love me because of the state of my body, or just anything to do with my body, like that I was still fat or anything like that. That would hurt me. Do you know what I mean? That is my weakness. That is the weak point in me. Going into that as a young teen, into adulthood is hard. Being so wrapped up in how other people perceive you, or how you perceive yourself, does limit your success, because you're not concerned about doing whatever it takes to get to where you want to be. You're more concerned about how people will judge you, or you've already been through such a monumental battle, and then you've got to then keep proving yourself to other people. Whereas obviously if there's a case of you fly through school and everybody's told you how great you are and that you can do whatever you want, you're going to go into adulthood knowing that the world is your oyster. And it's very important that we do teach kids these days that there is no limit. Do you know what I mean? There isn't a situation where you can't do what you want to do. There might be cases where it might be slightly longer or harder for you to get there, but that doesn't mean that the fight's not worth it. And I'm still working on where I want to be. You have to be motivated by life. You have to be in a situation where you're happy to fail in other aspects and sacrifice things to be able to get to where you want to be, and that is being an adult. Just to become an adult, life doesn't get any fairer, or it certainly doesn't give you second chances. If you want to be in a situation where you've got 3 cars and a big house, you've got to work for it. Like, the world owes you nothing. And that was one really big lesson for me, was that I was angry as an adult. Do you know what I mean? I was defensive, and I was, taken out on my family because I felt like the world had treated me so wrong so far, like so early. So, I was unfortunately that person that gravitated to, and I was the only one that could change that energy. Like, if I was the angry kid that was bitter over how I was treated, I would never get anywhere in life. Please don't think that I'm discrediting the effect of bullying, because every person has a completely different journey. But I think it's a case of, with me, that even though I was weak, like, it wasn't till I was much older that I actually ever fought back. So with that, I had a hard skin, and I had a certain strength that meant that I could kind of remove myself from that. But I know that some people aren't, obviously, quite so strong with that, and they do take everything to heart. Also kind of interesting in terms of learning who I was and what sort of friendship group I belonged in. I don't know if it's quite the same with other people, but I've definitely gone through situations where I've had people that I really considered, best friends, that I would take a bullet for at that age. Unfortunately, would cut me out, and that's happened twice, where I've really close with someone and trusted them with my life and everything, and overnight it's just gone, and you kind of have to find the closure in yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, that they're not going to be able to answer those unanswered questions and tell you why that they felt the need to just fall off the earth. But that's all part of growing up, is that you will lose friends, like, whether you like it or not. Some people kind of grow into different adults, like, your tastes change and your interests change, and you become a different person in so many other ways, and that's not bad ways. You kind of feel the pressure to be friends with them because you're scared of what life is like without them. And there will come a point where you are not scared anymore to stand on your own 2 feet, that you kind of feel, well, this friendship doesn't feed me, it doesn't bring me positivity in life, and it doesn't bring me support, so I don't need that. And that is such a detrimental and very important lesson to learn, because it's the very first steps of learning who you are. If it's a case of where you have to cut out people that you considered people that you shouldn't have to be able to be happier, then that's what it takes. I definitely am. I like to say that I'm pretty much 50-50 when it comes to academics and being a creative person. I really excelled in English, but I loved, things like art, where it was very much about, like, self-expression and being able to just kind of hide away for 50 minutes and just be in your head and listen to music and just, zone out of school. Some people really do try extremely hard at school, and they do come out with straight A's, and they come out with, amazing grades, where I had the potential to do so. I mean, I did, I came out with decent GCSEs, but had I not been in a situation where I resented school because I wasn't happy, and I didn't pay attention properly in lessons, because obviously there were circumstances where I was more in my head about
being bullied
and being scared to turn up to lessons, so I wasn't really giving it my all. But had I been in a more of a stronger mentality, I think I could have done a lot better, and I could have come out with stronger grades. But that's hindsight for you, and hindsight is everything that nobody can avoid it. I think a lot of things and a lot of success does come down to work ethic, and I mean, that obviously isn't a case when it comes to certain careers where it's like veterinary or being an actual practicing doctor, like, or law, for example. Like, there is obviously an element of, you have to have education behind you, and you have to have the qualifications to be able to do that sort of thing. But I also do think, especially with creative paths, or in terms of, like, actual skills, that you can effectively get there without the grades. Like, if you are determined, and you're strong in your method of how you're going to get there, and you have the drive to be able to do that, I think you have absolutely nothing stopping you. Like, It's more about you being able to get yourself in a position where you are around the right people and you are being seen by the right people. I've always had that drive, and my mum has definitely taught me to have such a strong work ethic and a drive to be someone, because I don't want to be in a position where I sit down at 40 and think, what have I done with my life? Like, what do I have to show? I want to turn up at our reunion and I want you to look at me and think,
shit, he really became someone.
Like, I want to be proud of myself, and I want to kind of own that. I want, excuse me, situations like there's not, a magic door that you open and you get the life you dreamed of. Like, you have to build that door and you have to walk yourself through it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the biggest life lesson that anyone has. So, breath, sis. I think life is definitely a journey that everybody goes through differently, and there's certain motivations that everybody has. Like, some people want to be in a situation where, they own a lot of beautiful things, or somebody wants to be in a situation where they've travelled the entire earth and they've seen so many countries and they've seen so many, islands that most people will never see in a lifetime. Like, everybody has a certain goal in life, and it's so interesting to see how people get there. Do you know what I mean? And it's, some people are, are so gifted in terms of being able to really put a stamp on the world and have this sort of really amazing ownership of their life, and create businesses and be somebody that's considered well known. There are so many journeys that people can go on, and seeing other people do that is so inspiring. There is so much judgment and there's so much ridicule, and I just think, people are going through life in so many different paths that we don't know about.